There I am. Hey, welcome to Thursday Night Live. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for joining me tonight. So, we're doing part two in our detoxification, which is the call of 2025 to let go of those things that aren't working for us anymore. So, we have room to bring in things that are bigger and better and more in line with who we are and what we want. And so tonight we are going to be talking about detoxing the mind and emotions, thoughts and emotions. Because last week we talked about detoxing the physical body. All right, hang on a second. I have to have like the right notes here. There we go. And today we're going to talk about our minds and emotions. Um, but before I talk about what we can do, let me first talk about the mechanism. So there are three things that happen with us. There are our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. Now we're going to talk about our actions next week, but today we're going to be talking about our thoughts and emotions. And so many of us are aware and familiar of our emotions when we have some kind of an emotional response. And often we don't think about what we're thinking about when we're having that emotion. But the two are intricately connected together. We cannot have an emotion unless it is activated by a thought that we have. Now, we've all have had situations where we've had a thought, but we don't necessarily have an emotional response. And my example, my kind of old example is you're driving down the road and some idiot cuts you off. And there are those times where you just kind of like wave them on, and you might think, oh, what an idiot in your head. But it's a nothing burger. They go, you go, you're not upset. You go on your way. And then there are other times where the person could do the exact same thing, and that, oh, they're an idiot, turns into you banging on the steering wheel, you screaming at them, you flipping them the bird, you having some kind of an emotional reaction to the situation. But it's not that the emotion just magically appeared. It's because that there was some thought that was sitting underneath it that activated the emotion. So thoughts are, I'm going to say, neutral. They can be good or bad, but in general, they're kind of neutral. They don't, there's no active mechanism to them. Our emotions, on the other hand, are very different. Years ago, I heard someone say that emotions are energy in motion, emotion. And so when we have an emotional response to something, it actually activates things in our physical body and causes the release of hormones that impact how our body functions. So we can have something bad happen, or the guy cuts us off, and our body releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and we get uptight and our breathing slows down and our heart rate speeds up, all based on that emotional response. It creates physiological responses inside of our body. But some of our emotions make us feel good and some of them make us feel bad. But many times we don't really pay attention to the emotions that make us feel good. And we just kind of live on a certain amount of autopilot. And so where I'm going with this is the detoxing process. And we have talked about this on a lot of different episodes when we talk about mindfulness and our thoughts and emotions, but the part of the detoxing process is again to start paying attention to our thoughts, if that's an easier pathway, or paying attention to our emotions, because our emotions tend to be more upfront. We are definitely impacted by our emotions. And so if something happens and we have a bad emotional response to it, one of the things that we need to know is that it's always a reflection of what our thoughts are. And so when we start paying attention to our thoughts, we can start doing things where we can change what the thought is, and that's by becoming mindfully aware. It's like, oh, I'm having an emotional response. Well, what thought triggered that off? Or I'm having this bad brain, what triggered that off inside of me? Because if you're having bad brain, your body is also going to be reflecting that, where you're feeling kind of moody, you're a little more on edge, you're more easily excited, or you feel stressful, or you have anxiety, or you have worry. Anxiety and worry or rumination are all signs that your brain is not in a good place. And with that, your body is reacting in kind. But the other piece to it is being curious about what's going on. Okay, so I'm feeling this way. What caused that? Okay, so I'm having these kinds of thoughts. What caused that? And be curious about those things, because it doesn't take that long if you start paying attention that you start to notice a pattern. If I'm interacting with this person, it always sets me off. Or I'm in a relationship with someone and we get along great, except for the times when they come home drunk, and then everything is different. And there's the fact that they're drunk, but we are responding in a different way to them and their energy. But we might not even be aware that there's a difference in what's going on. And so curiosity is the key, because after a while and you start seeing these patterns, it becomes more obvious of what you need to do to change the pattern, because a pattern is a pattern. We are, many times we're not aware of our thoughts, and we find ourselves having these sudden emotional responses to something. But it's because there is some old programming, some old piece of information that's sitting in our subconscious mind, in the back of our brain, in our ego, that is being activated. And a lot of the times we don't recognize it because it's just hidden back there. And that curiosity will give us the opportunity to allow that bit of information to come to the forefront and come to the surface and allow us to make a different choice. But we've talked about what to do when, we're having bad brain or we're sitting in uncomfortable emotions. Breathe, tap, meditate, go to the gym, any of the tools that we have talked about on this show. If you're having a bad thought, think of 3 good thoughts, or bring in an attitude of gratitude. This happened the other day, and I found it really interesting, the change in myself as I started to really apply a number of the different strategies that I talk about in the Dang It Was Me All Along book. And I went to the gym, and then I stopped at the supermarket on my way home. And as I left the supermarket, my car started acting really wiggy. And it was acting in the same way that it had a few weeks ago, where I had to go and buy a new coil for my engine, because apparently there's your spark plug and then there's a coil that sits on it, and one of them went out. So I bought one coil. Little did I know that they recommend that you buy all new coils. I didn't know. I just bought one. But it was acting the same way. And I'm like, oh my God, and my brain started, it wanted to kick in with a bunch of negative thinking. Oh, my car is really broken. How much is this going to cost? Blah, 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 blah. And I looked, and where it was acting jinky, I literally just passed an AutoZone, which is where I bought the last coil. And I went, and like 2 doors down, I pulled into their parking lot, turned around, drove into AutoZone, had them check it, got the parts. And I had so much gratitude that my car decided to break right at AutoZone versus somewhere else, that there was no emotion. It was just, okay, it needs to get taken care of, and I'm just going to take care of it. It became a nothing burger. But I also want to throw in is that, and I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Yvonne, but maybe not. But sometimes there's something going on and we're thinking about it, we're worrying about it, we're trying to use our tools, we're tapping and breathing and going for walks and doing all of these things to change how we feel inside or to change our thinking. And sometimes that just doesn't work. We get to a place where we're in a cycle of worry and we're doing these things and it's just not shifting anything. And sometimes when we put in so much effort and so much expectation that the things we're doing are going to work and then they don't, it just makes the matter be worse. So in times like that, sometimes we just have to take a step back and breathe and go, you know what? This is okay, because our thoughts and our emotions are like the weather and it is always going to change. And sometimes we just have to ride it out and have it be okay to be in that emotional place at that point in time. So the point of this whole thing is when we change our thoughts, it changes our emotions. And when we change our thoughts and our emotions, we can change our lives. And that's this week's Soul Healer Moment. And I'm going to start using that term. So years ago, I appeared on a series or a podcast, Feet to the Fire with James Arthur Yanchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. And once a month, I would do a Soul Healer Moment. And these are kind of like them because I had a 15-minute slot. So these are going to be called Soul Healer Moments. Yeah. Anyway, so as always, this show is brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can learn to become a medical intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner from the comfort of your own home. So if you go to appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, you can download my free 50-page Jumpstart Your Intuition Guide to help you open the door to your own intuition. That's at appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And if there's stuff going on in your life and you need some help, you need some guidance, you need some insights, you need to talk about somebody and find out what's really going on, reach out to me. Go to soulhealer.com and schedule a private consultation. There's tons of articles. You can get my books, videos. There's a lot of material on there. And most importantly, there's the contact form that you can use to reach out to me to set up a time. If you are listening to this show in a pre-recorded format and would like to participate in the dialogue and get a free on-air psychic reading, please go to my YouTube channel. That's Just Energy Radio on YouTube. That's 3 words, Just Energy Radio on YouTube. And that will allow you to join the chat and you can hang out with us and this great group of people that I have that come here every week and join the fun and get a free on-air psychic reading. All righty. So there's already a ton of comments and I'm just going to say hi. And as always, if you want to communicate with me and you want me to respond, please do so in all capital letters. If you're new here and you want to get a reading, all you need to do is say, hey, Dr. Rita Louise, you have great hair and I would like a reading, and then give me a number from 1 to 3, because that's